In today's video, we're talking about the ZV-E10 and every difference that I could find from the original camera. Let's dive in. If you follow the channel and you're wondering why the studio is different, it's because right now I am in my hometown. I just purchased a home here and I've been working away on that. So my actual studio that you're used to is in Victoria, BC, but for now, this is gonna have to do. If you stick around to the end of the video, I'll give you a verdict on if you should pick up the version 2, who it's for, and if you should just maybe keep your original ZV-E10. I'm gonna try and do this one take Timmy, so I have my phone here with me and all of my research, so bear with me as I go through this. Why did my light just turn on? So difference number one is that the ZV-E10 has the XR processor, which allows for things like the better and new menu system. It also has better and improved autofocus with 759 autofocus points, so that is much better than the original. It has oversampled from 6K, like maybe 5.6K, 4K 60, which is actually awesome because you didn't get that on the original. You just had 4K 30, and I believe that came in at 1.3 times crop, so that kind of sucked about that. Here's one of my favorites, is that if you like color grading, you're gonna get 10-bit color out of this instead of 8-bit. Yes, the original could do like S-Log and things like that, but my favorite part about this sensor, borrowed from the A6700 and the FX30, is that you have more ability in post for color grading, and that makes those S-Log2, S-Log3 profiles a whole lot better to work with. While we're on the topic of color grading, in the ZV-E10 you actually get a built-in LUT preview on your camera, so you can take your favorite LUT file, put it in your camera, and then you can get like an accurate representation of what it'll look like, that 10-bit footage graded, but you'll get that just in camera, which is actually super cool. Monitors can do this, but it's really nice that they've embedded that in the camera as well. Really quick, if you're finding value in this video, it goes a really long way if you could just leave a like. 3, 2, 1. Thank you so much, and let's dive back in. S-Cinetone is actually a welcome addition as well when you talk about these camera profiles. I've lumped in a few things here. You also get focus breathing compensation, which you don't get on the Mark 1. And then real-time autofocus as well. We already talked about like the improved autofocus. Another new thing about the Mark II is that you get improved stabilization. Now, this camera body doesn't have in-body image stabilization, but the digital stabilization is improved, which is actually really nice. One thing that's really nice also on this for content creators, because myself, oftentimes I'm using my camera for shorts and reels and things like that. If you turn the camera vertically, you're actually gonna get your menu system there. This camera relies a lot on the touch functionality because you don't get so many custom buttons on the ZV-E10 1 or 2, to be honest. Maybe the biggest upgrade to me is it now has the FC100 battery, which on the A7 IV, it's interchangeable with that. And I also have the A7 III. So now my workflow with batteries, I can just have like 6, 7, 8 of these batteries and just like throw them in any camera. So that's like really nice to me. And on top of that, you get 4K 24 frames per second, over 2 hours of constant footage. So to me, that's an amazing upgrade, considering that you only got about 80 minutes of 4K runtime on the original. I think we're on point number 11, and let's talk a little bit about live streaming. When you plugged in the old ZV-E10, I think you only got up to 1080p from direct streaming with no capture card, but you actually get 4K up to 30 frames per second on the ZV-E10 That's with no capture card, just plug and play. And then you also have like that micro HDMI. If you want longer record times and don't want to worry about like overheating as much, you can just use that micro HDMI and a capture card, and you get really high quality 4K out of this Mark II. The original ZV-E10 had a really good microphone on it, but it's even upgraded on the Mark II, borrowing from the ZV-E1. And it also has like that omnidirectional stuff, so you can like, if you're talking behind the camera and you want the mic to pick up there or just in front of the camera, or that omnidirectional function, you can actually change that in the menu. The ZV-E10 does overheat, and I'm still waiting for mine to come before doing testing, but I'll leave the graph from Gerald Undun's video because he did like very intensive testings on that. If you want to shoot 1080p on this and you don't care about the 4K 10-bit 422, so maybe if you even wanted to shoot like 4K 24 frames per second 8-bit, you don't have to worry about overheating. But if you do want to max this thing out, here are the overheating settings for that. Because the original ZV-E10 couldn't shoot 4K 10-bit, you didn't have to worry about overheating so much, and it was super rare for it to overheat. Another downfall to the Mark II is that it only has electronic shutter, whereas its baby brother, the ZV-E10, had a mechanical shutter as well. Now, there are some pros to having a electronic shutter, but it's too bad that they couldn't include the mechanical as well, because when you're panning that camera left to right and maybe you're shooting high action sports things, you're going to get some bad banding indoors, and then you're also going to get rolling shutter from left to right, and it's just going to make your photo look like jello. More cons with this camera is that it's more expensive, but that's to be expected with the video upgrades that it has. So you can get the body for $999 US, or you can skip it, and if you're just like on more of a budget or you don't care about the 10-bit functionalities and all these upgrades, you can pay $699 for the original. So back to some of the good points is that you don't get a crop at 4K 30, 4K 24, and at 4K 60, which it can now shoot and the original couldn't. It's a very small crop at 1.1 times. The downside there of the Mark I is that you actually get a 1.33 times crop in 4K, and for a lot of people in a crop sensor, that's already cropped a lot. So unfortunately, 1.3 times adds and more extension on that, and for most people that's not good, especially if you're trying to shoot wide. Point number 20 on my differences list is that the SD card slot has been upgraded with the UHS 2. It's now compatible with that, so you get better buffer speeds in the burst mode, so you can actually take more pictures at a time by just like clicking and holding, and the camera is able to process that a lot better. The back LCD screen, which this camera relies on because it doesn't have a viewfinder, has been upgraded quite a bit. So it's actually even better at 1.04 million dots, which is an upgrade from the 0.9 dots on the Mark I. The last few points I have is that you get that dual native ISO in video recording up to 2500 ISO. So once you get to 2500, the noise actually goes back to the original performance, which is really good, and then builds from there. So if you need low light video and good quality, that's an upgrade. And I think that's pretty much it. So who is this camera for? If you are video focused first, the upgrade is absolutely worth the extra $300. If you are photographer first, which is, I don't know why you're buying this camera, it doesn't have a viewfinder, but if you're photo first with that no mechanical shutter, I would say you probably should skip this one. And if you're a hybrid shooter who's mostly video, but need to get by with some 26 megapixel photos that's just electronic shutter, I definitely think you can get away with this if you're not shooting a lot of action, and that rolling shutter is not going to be an issue for you. If you're on a tighter budget than either of these cameras, I would highly recommend checking out this. Thanks so much for being here. I appreciate you, and we will see you in the next video.